Thank you for joining me this evening for my next art workshop. And tonight's art workshop is about working with oil paint sticks. So I don't know if y'all are at all. Are you familiar? Let's see any comments. Are you familiar with oil paint sticks at all? And so we'll see if we have anybody on the stream yet that knows about oil paint sticks. So tonight, the two types of oil paint sticks we're going to be talking about are these are drawing oils. The paints I'm going to be showing you tonight are by R&F. It's a company out of Kingston, New York, um, and I have been to their facility many times, taken many classes with them, and received my advanced instructor workshop or instructor certification from R&F up in New York. But these are new. This is the R&F. Hey, Mark V, welcome in, welcome in. These are new. They're the R&F drawing oils. So instead of it being a larger, softer, kind of like lipstick stick like these are right here, this is the regular pigment sticks from R&F, which is an oil paint stick. And these are their new drawing oils, which are a little smaller and a little more stiff than these are. So I thought, ooh, that'll be fun to show y'all the new drawing oils as well as how I use them on their own or together with those big pigment sticks from R&F. Now there are other companies that also make oil paint sticks. So this is what an oil paint stick looks like I said. Sometimes they'll come with different wrappers. Sometimes they have an angled top instead of a flat top. Uh, they're made by Winsor and Newton. Sennelier also has an oil paint stick. So there are several different brands out there of oil paint that comes in a stick besides in a tube. Now I also have some, where is it, oil paint in a tube here as well, so that we can talk about the differences between the oil paint coming out of the tube and the oil paints in the sticks. I did just get a couple of brand new sets of the oil sticks. One was this, what they call the introductory set. So I have those here to show you, as well as a set. This was the opaque colors set from R&F. These are the colors that were in it. And the cool thing about this set, which is the opaque color set from R&F, is it comes with the paint sticks. Let me see if I can find a paint stick that is not yet. So this is what they this is what they look like in their packaging. And so the packaging fits perfectly into these this cradled ampersand board, which is a perfect surface for oil painting. And so you can also get the some of the sets where these sticks come right inside the board, and then you also get the board that you can paint on. So this is what I was doing earlier today, just a little experiment on the board. Goodness knows in storage, I have tons of these boards. I love working on the boards because the surface is smooth. When you work on a canvas, you know that the surface is bumpy, right? From the canvas. Unless you're buying linen and then you're putting gesso on it and you're making it super smooth, you can do that. But I just like to buy the surface already smooth and ready to go. Some of the other products that we'll be using together with the oil paint sticks are, this is a pigment, like I said, the pigment sticks, but this is a blender stick. So you can see I've already been messing with it. It's fallen apart already. But it is a pigment stick. And this is where you can go in directly on your surface and blend colors together or make your colors more translucent. So this is actually an oil pigment stick, but with no pigment in it. just the base. The base is wax and linseed oil. That's what they put in these sticks. So this is wax and linseed oil with no pigment. Easy peasy. They also, though, make their blending medium in a tub like this. So back in the day when I was taking all my classes, they only had the blending stick like this. And now I'm sure because of the cries of the artist community, they have come up with their blending medium, which is wax and linseed oil in a jar. So you can see here, I was pulling some of it out earlier, and they have the blending medium and the blending stick. Here it says with dryer or one that doesn't have a dryer in it. So what does that mean? Well, if you know anything about oil painting, you know that oil paints can take a long time to dry. And because I live in Florida where it's very humid, they take a long, extra long time to dry. So when I paint, it's helpful if I use a paint that has wax in it, which helps the paint to dry faster, or that has dryers in it, which is why, hey, flower gazer, welcome in. Which is why I purchased this medium that has with dryer because I'm in Florida. What can I tell you? So oil paints take forever to dry here. But if I can get it to dry a little bit faster if I'm using the mediums that have the dryers in it. But just the stick itself, because of the fact that the oil in here, the oil paint, oops, I'm getting paint on me already. The fact that the oil paint in this stick is mixed with a little bit of wax as well as linseed oil, the pigment, this will actually dry faster than your typical oil paint out of a tube, which is great because I like to do my work and have it dry. And then if you, it becomes in my experience, when I'm working with the oil paint sticks, they become tack dry in about 48 hours. And then I can go back over top of it again and add little details in with the stick again on top once that paint film starts to firm up. Let me show you another piece that I did earlier using that same theme of poppies. But what I want you to notice is when you're using a stick like this, here's a yellow one, for instance, that I was using on here, there. When you use the sticks, what I love about it is, do you see all of the texture there? You're actually able to hit it and get little bits off. You're able to do strokes and you actually see the big juicy strokes. So yes, you can oil paint. Absolutely. You can use these oil paints with a brush. All you have to do is take the paint like this. This is a palette. So this is a palette paper pad. And I can just put the paint right on here like this, and then I can pick that up with a brush and I can paint with it. So you absolutely can paint with these um, with a brush as well. You don't have to only paint with it with a from the stick, because let's say you needed a yellow and you didn't have your proper tube of yellow, but you had it in a paint stick, you could just take some of it out, put it on your palette, mix it like you would any other tube paint. Just bear in mind it's going to dry a little faster than your tube paints, which to me is a fabulous thing because oil paint tends to take a long time to dry. Let's see, something else that they offer at RNF, besides offering these sets similar to this size, which is the full size stick here, there are a couple of other sizes as well. Um, this is one of my favorites, like this size. Aren't they cute? This is the half size of a pigment stick. So here's the full size and there's the half size. And so these are great. Um, you can get them in little sets of 3. So if you wanted to try out these paints instead of committing to the whole set that has the large sticks in it, you can get sets that have these little sticks in them. Aren't they awesome? And actually, I know some people, I saw a video recently where someone bought some of these full-size sticks together with a friend, and then they cut them in half, and then they each got sets that were like this. So that's an economical way too, if you want to try them out. And they don't have there are only, I think, two or three sets of these half size. So if you wanted to try the sets, I mean, other colors, if you had somebody who wanted to try them with you, you can cut them in half and then they would be like this. But I love those little half size ones. Now, sometimes also on the RNF website, so not necessarily available through retailers, sometimes they have what they call limited edition colors. And that happens a lot with other brands too. Like even in the watercolor world, Schmincke or Holbein will come out with a limited edition. And so I like to jump on those if there's a color that I like. And this one in particular, wow, I loved this color. Look at that. It's beautiful. So I had to have that one. But keep your eyes open then. Sometimes on directly on the RNF website, they have these limited edition colors. If you really want to get into painting with these. Oh, actually, I have a couple more of these little ones here. And so let me keep those all together, but those are great. I like these small ones when I'm traveling to do a demo. They're small, so it's still the same paint. They're just a little bit easier to carry. Now, some of the tools we're going to be using are a palette knife and then brushes. But these are not the same brushes that we normally use for watercolor. So when I'm normally doing workshops, I'm showing you brushes that I use for acrylics and watercolors. But this is a type of brush. This is a bristle called a hog bristle. So this is a hog bristle brush, and a lot of oil painters use hog bristle brushes. And actually, let me see, here's a set. Like you can get them inexpensively in sets like this. And initially, they'll be super stiff. So just wash them because I don't know if you can see that or not, but there's a bunch of there's a bunch of dust coming off of there. So you'll want to wash them thoroughly and dry them thoroughly before you use them the first time. And as you work with them, they actually get quite a bit softer because you're having them in oil and you're having them in your solvents. And so this one I've used for a while and it's much softer than these brand new ones, which are a little bit harder. And I do have a special, like this is a brush palette. And so this is where I keep my watercolor brushes, which are the hog bristle, right? Now this one right here, is that a hog bristle? Yeah, these are all hog bristle brushes. Actually, this one right here is from Jerry's Artorama. It's part of their Jewel group, and actually it does say bristle, so it is a bristle. I thought maybe it was some other synthetic, but it's a bristle. And so that's hog bristle brushes. And that's generally what you're going to see when you're in the section where it's like, where are my oil paint brushes? But you can use this one is a synthetic. You see the white Tacklon, it used to be white. So this is white Tacklon and it's a very durable nylon. And so I find that these work very well for oil paint as well. And then when you're done with them, to clean them, all you have to do is I have a big cake of brush soap. So I use special brush soaps to be sure that I get all the pigment out because now I can go and use this for acrylic paint once it's fully clean and dry, because it's a nice soft top. I really like these Tacklons. They come in white and gold. Sometimes you'll see it's called golden Tacklon, and sometimes they make them in black too, but I prefer the white ones and the gold ones myself. So those are the types of brushes. Oh, here's a whole set that I have right here. And this one is your golden Tacklon. Let's see, this is used to be gold. And the rest of these look like they are, even this one, it's bristle, hog bristle. So this is a very important shape, I think, for oil painting. I like this shape a lot, and that is called a filbert. So you see how it is rounded at the top here? I find with oil painting, that's an excellent shape to use when I'm oil painting. So those are some of the brushes. Um, there's also, I like to keep a container like this for my solvent. So when you're working with oil paint, let's say I'm in the reds and I want to go to the blues and greens, I need to clean my brush in between if I don't have a separate brush for that. So you need some sort of solvent to do that in. And there are, one solvent is by, this one is my favorite by Gamblin called Gamsol. This is an odorless mineral spirits. So this works very well to clean your brushes and to uh, give your paint, loosen up your paint. But I've found something that is even better than that, that I like, because that, the Gamsol is a petroleum product. Well, this is lavender. This is by a company called Chelsea, and it is lavender spike oil. So it has a very pleasant smell to it. It's a natural oil. It's non-toxic, so it's a non-toxic solvent, and you can use this in your studio for in instead of the Gamsol. And it comes in a set. This size bottle, I have larger bottles of this as well, but this size bottle comes in a set with a lean medium as well. So you see that where it says lean medium? So this is actually the same lavender spike oil and linseed oil together. That's why it has a little bit of a yellow look to it, because it has the natural seed oil in it. So this is also a beautiful medium to use together with your oil paints, whether you're using the oil paint sticks or oil paint from a tube. Either way, this is a beautiful medium for that. And I'll have links to these various products and mediums in the description of the video on YouTube tomorrow for you. Um, now, if you haven't already, I would suggest that you go print out the picture. This is what we're going to work from tonight. Of course, you can do this in watercolor, you can do it in acrylics. But tonight, I'm going to do just a loose interpretation of this red thistle as our project. So it is available on my Instagram and on my YouTube channel in the community tab if you want to find it and print it out for yourself. All right, one more solution, well, two more solutions before we go over top of the table. One is by a company called M. Graham. They make oil paints, and they have this absolutely beautiful oil called walnut oil. So most, in general, your oil paints like this in a tube and your oil paint in the sticks like this, they have linseed oil in them. And a linseed oil is what they call a drying oil. That means over time it's going to dry and create a nice film for the paint. The M. Graham company also offers you, instead of linseed oil, for blending in with the paint, they have what they call walnut oil. And I love walnut oil because it's still a very nice oil, and it's almost clear. It's almost crystal clear. It just has barely any yellowness to it. And I've had this for a while, and it's still almost crystal clear. Where linseed oil will turn yellow over time, and I have some linseed oil that's yellow. But look at this walnut oil. It's not yellow. So that's awesome. It's a great oil if you want to thin out your paint. Sometimes your paint can get a little thick, like right now, this blue in this tube is a little bit thick. So if I want to thin out the consistency of it, I highly recommend walnut oil for doing that. Instead of using one of these mediums, because they have a solvent in them. So it's up to you. You have to learn what consistency you prefer. Do you like it? A lot of artists will work with a very thin layer for the first layer, leave it for a couple of days to dry, and then come back and work over top of it with their thicker paints. So in that case, you can use your walnut oil or your spike, in this case, lavender spike oil. Um, or if you prefer those first layers to be a little thicker, then you just work with your walnut oil. Okay, so I don't know if anybody watching the show right now is an oil painter or has painted in oil paint, but these are some of the things that oil painters take into consideration. Now, another item that I really like to use with oil painting, and we'll work with these oil paint sticks. This is by Gamblin. So this was the Gamblin Gamsol I showed you earlier, the solvent. Well, here is a what they call solvent-free gel that you can add to your paint. Let's say you thinned it out a little too much and you're like, oh my gosh, now it's too thin. You can add a little bit of this solvent-free gel and that'll bulk it up a little bit. So the two things you can use to bulk up your paint are this solvent-free gel or this solvent-free blending medium that has wax in it. This has no wax, this has wax. So yes, I have a lot of art supplies because you have different needs at different moments, right? So I have all the supplies that I need for that. Um, all right, some of the surfaces that I like to work on with these oil paint sticks and oil paints in general are canvas. So this is a canvas board right here, and it's actually a piece of canvas that's stretched onto a board, so it's more stiff, right? And it already has gesso on it, but usually I will re-gesso it anyway because this gesso I find, the gesso is the primer, I find, and here's what it looks like there it is in a tube, gesso. Um, I find that the gesso that comes on the board here usually is a little plasticky and repels water. I like it to be a little toothier. So meaning it has a little more absorbency to it. So I usually will put a fresh coat of gesso on it. And what I did last night was I wanted to tint some of these backgrounds on the boards. So I went ahead and the I put a layer of acrylic paint mixed the blue color mixed with gesso in order to create the background. So I'm going to start when I do this picture. I'm going to start on a pre-gessoed tinted gesso background. And I used two different methods to put the gesso on. One method was I used a palette knife and I applied it so that there would be more texture in the gesso with the palette knife. And the other one that I did, I used a brush. So this one has a much smoother surface to it, which some people prefer to work on a smooth surface. So I used a brush. But another surface that I discovered recently that I am like so excited about is this Canson XL paper, but it's for oil and acrylics. So this paper is already right out of the pad, ready to accept acrylic paint and oil paint, which is awesome. And that not only that, you can put oil pastels on here as well. So it's a paper that has a lot of good uses to it. It's not quite as heavy as the Canson XL watercolor paper. The Canson XL watercolor paper I show you when we're doing watercolor lessons is 140 pounds is the weight. This one is 136 pounds right here, it shows you. And so that's just slightly less thick than the watercolor paper, but it's beautiful. It is gorgeous. I love this paper. And when you open up the pad, you're going to notice that the surface of the paper, they've taken the paper and they've made the surface look like and feel like canvas. It's so cool, but it's not, it's paper. But they have treated the paper so that when you use oil on it in particular, so this is the painting that I did on the paper with oil, that it will not come through to the back. See how there's no oil seeping through the back? If you use regular paper, even watercolor paper, if it's not treated for oil paint, the oil will soak through to the back. And that's true of oil pastels as well. And so this paper is great because it has sizing in it so that it will not soak through. Welcome in there. I see some new folks coming into the stream. Now, something when you're working with these stretched canvases on a panel like this, they're not going to warp, right? So they're going to stay relatively flat when you work with them, no matter how much paint you put on them. Whereas paper, when you put paint on the paper, it's going to do this. Can you see the warping of the paper, right? So what I did was I took some of that blue and gesso together and I said, well, let me gesso the front of the paper and see what happens. So in other words, I coated the front of this paper with one layer of the blue paint together with gesso. And this is what happened. It curled. You see that crazy curl? And so it's not always advisable when you're painting to have your paper curling on you. So there is a trick you can do that I did last night. And I took a piece of this paper. So this is the front of the paper with nothing on it. And I said, all right, let me put just a thin coat of gesso on the back of it. So this is white gesso. So again, that's the primer, this stuff right here, gesso. I put a layer of white gesso on the back. So if you look here, you don't have that same, you have a tiny, tiny little bit of a bend, but you don't have anything near as much as when I put just this here on the front. You see that? Sometimes it works differently when you put paint on the front or the back. So if you're concerned, if you're going to be putting acrylic paint on these oil and acrylic papers, I suggest that you take the back of the paper and you coat it with the gesso, and then you won't have that crazy bending as you're painting with it. Okay. That's just a little studio trick. Now with the oils, I found the oils work just fine on this XL paper. They don't, I haven't put enough on it to see if it makes it bend or not, but the nature of oil-based paint versus water-based paint is that the water-based paint is more likely to make the paper curl, and the oil-based paint is not so much likely to make the paper curl. So we can just go right onto this paper and not worry about it. We don't have to prime it, which is awesome, especially if you want to practice. Practice on paper. You don't need to practice on a whole bunch of the canvases, right? But when you're ready to possibly move to canvas, there's another thing called a canvas pad. And so just like this is a paper pad, like this, there are pads of just sheets of canvas, and you can practice on those to start before you move to your more expensive stretch canvases if that's something you want to try as well. And I have one, but it's in the other room over there where I was practicing. So we will go ahead over top of the table and get started with actually swatching some of these paints out so I can show you how they work. I'm excited. Now, what I'm doing is I'm storing my pigment sticks in a box. So you see here, I lined it with some paper towels and I'm able to stack these sticks up right inside here. But let me show you a brand new stick. Okay, let's get this one out of here. Dee. The only thing with oil paints is you're going to end up having wet oil paintings and you can't stick anything on top of them. It takes a while for them to dry. So it's advisable to have, if you're working on paper or these panels like this, like this panel here, it's advisable to have one of those stacking um, devices that have a lot of little shelves on it so that you can put your wet paintings in there and they're all stacked like that. And that helps to um, keep them from touching each other, right? Because it's going to stay wet for a while. If you're working on larger pieces, of course, you can leave them on your easel or you can hang them on the wall. I know an artist in Fort Lauderdale, she'll have 8 or 10 paintings going at the same time, large ones hanging on the wall in her studio so that she can move to the different ones depending on how dry they are, right? Okay, so this is the, you know what, we're gonna actually, instead of starting with the sticks, we're gonna start with the, what are called the drawing oils. So these are, again, by R&F. These are the drawing oils and they're, let me show you a regular stick versus the drawing oils. So here's a regular stick, pigment stick, and then here is a drawing oils stick. So you see the difference between the two? Now, the drawing oil stick, I would say, is a little bit bigger than an oil pastel. So there's actually more in there than there is an oil pastel. But I find that this paint goes faster. When you're using it, you're using more of it, I find, than the oil pastel. It's just in general, a little creamier than the oil pastels. But this is the drawing stick and this is the regular pigment stick. So you might say, well, Tristina, what's the difference between a pigment stick, of oil stick, and a drawing oil? And so RNF just came out with these drawing oils recently, and they're the only ones that have them. The difference here is that there's more wax in the drawing oil than there is in the pigment stick. Okay. So the more wax just means it's a little bit stiffer. It's a little easier for you to draw with. These are super creamy, the pigment sticks, and I'll be showing you those in a little bit. So let's start with the drawing sticks. Um, so let me pull these out. This is what they call the modern color set. So there are several sets, plus you can buy the individual colors as well. So I actually have a bunch of them, but I wanted to show you, I love this modern set. This is more up my line of colors. But I've ordered many, many of them. I have a lot more. But we'll start with this so you get a feel for, gee, if you had one set, there's still plenty that you can do with it. Now, the way these, because they have wax in them, so they're the same as the larger pigment sticks, it's going to say um, on here linseed oil and natural waxes. Okay. And then it also is going to tell you the pigment, what pigments are inside this stick. And these are made in the USA. I was telling you earlier, they're made in Kingston, New York. There's a fabulous crew of people that makes them up there. And so this, because it has wax in it, what happens is it's going to skin over as it just sits and you're not using it. So what I do, you can use a blade, like an X-Acto blade or something like that, or I like to just use a palette knife, and I like to take off the skin from the top area before I start working with it. And that just exposes the paint. Now, you don't have to do this. You can just go straight to paper. But what I find happens is, you see those little bits right there? Those bits end up getting flaking off and getting in your paint if you don't take them off ahead of time. So let me just grab myself a paper towel right here. So we'll get those off. So I usually will do the top, which I think is already done. Did I already do the top? Yeah, I think I already took it off the top. And then I'm just doing around the edges a little bit here. So just before I get to working with them, I do this, and that takes off that little bit of dry wax coating that flakes like that. Okay. Because I want to get to the creamy paint. Okay. There we go. So those are the bits. And these I just throw away. I don't try to reconstitute them. What happens is the wax hardens, which is the same way that it hardens on your surface as your painting is finished. And so you just want to throw those away. They won't be reconstituted. But here we go. The nice thing is that you can draw with them. So let's just do super creamy. So nice. So very similar to an oil pastel, but the difference is because this is just linseed oil and wax, it's going to fully dry and you don't have to put it behind glass. Oil pastels have a little bit of petroleum um, petroleum oil in it. So like a mineral oil, and so it doesn't dry. It's a synthetic oil instead of being a natural oil or an oil derived from petroleum, so it doesn't dry. So that's why with oil pastels, you have to put them behind glass because they're going to catch dust otherwise, and they can be gouged. But once this dries, it is permanent, just like a regular oil paint would be. So isn't that fun? Oh my gosh, they are just so fun to draw with. And what I like them for is to do my initial drawing and then come in with the larger pigment sticks to add a lot more paint, hence drawing oils. But you can do whole paintings just with drawing oils. So don't think that you're limited, okay? You can, but you see how nicely it goes on there? Let's take some of the orange. Now, I've already taken some of that off. Now, this corner right here, I have not peeled yet. So what happens when I put it down and I start to move it on the paper, yes, the color comes out, but can you see how you've got little bits right here? And those bits are going to end up in your artwork. So it's not a big deal. It does come off, but then what I end up having to do, there are bits on my artwork and I have to go back and take the bits off. And so that's a little bit annoying, right? That's why I like to just peel it first and then know that I have that wax coating off of there to start with. There we go. Done. Okay. And then now I can go in here and I have full use of it, of the drawing stick. So let's come in here and do that. So creamy. And I love the fact that you can get your lines. So to me, an excellent combination is this oil paper. So paper that's made for oil paint, and then doing my sketches, initial sketches with the drawing oils. I think there are about 40 colors right now of the drawing oils. Um, and so you can do your sketching of your ideas with this, and it creates finished artworks. Don't get me wrong. It can be a finished artwork. Oh, let me put some of this. Now I'm going to use this. This is my favorite. Instead of white, I like to use this color. It's brilliant yellow extra pale. It's called. So it's a excuse me, it's a cadmium yellow. PY37 with titanium white and zinc white. But you can do the blending right on the surface like this. And I love this yellow. This yellow's awesome. See, now what's happening is because I didn't take the layer off. I need to peel that layer off. It's not blending the way I want it to because that wax layer is still sitting on the top. Okay, there we go. Let's get that off of there. So if you didn't know any better, you'd be frustrated because you'd say, oh my gosh, this isn't working. Well, it's not working because you have to peel that layer of hardened wax off of it. And then you can get it to start doing what it's supposed to do there. Okay. And if I want to clean it, I just do this. I just go ahead in there and take that off. Ah, oil paint's flying. So let me just come in here. That what I'm doing right now is I'm tapping, and I do the same technique with oil pastels. I like to tap in order to deposit color. Now you're gonna see it's a lot easier to do to get the paint off with these big ones than this. This is more, as they say, more for drawing, more for drawing. Okay, let me put a little bit of this here and a little bit of this here. Oh, this yellow extra pale. It will become your best friend. I just love it. Okay, so let's do that. I'm just putting a little bit of color on here, like that, and a little bit more in here. All right. So before I put it away, I like to clean the tops off. Not everybody does. My other artist friend in Fort Lauderdale, she just throws all of her oil bars into a box. And then the next time when she pulls them out, it's going to have formed that skin and she's going to be peeling it off anyway. So she doesn't worry about it. All right. Actually, I'm going to put those in here. This is just a little plastic top to something. I'm putting them in there so that they don't get paint all over my work surface here. There we go. They are a lot cleaner than these big sticks. I will tell you that. I like how, because they are more solid, you don't get quite as much of it. You get some of it on your hands, but not as much of it as you do with the big pigment sticks. I mean, you're definitely making a commitment with the pigment sticks and you are getting it all over you. Let me show you some of the texture so far up in here. And then let me add some more of this in so you can do your quick little sketches like that. Let's put some orange on. You see how it just comes right off once you've got that skin off. So if it's not gliding for you across the paper or the surface, it means that there's a skin there. Okay, that's in your way. Okay, lovely. And I'm kind of anal, so I make sure that I wipe it each time. But like I said, it's not necessary if you're in the middle of a painting session and you know you're going to be reusing those colors again. So let's go back to the red here. And I'm going to put a little bit more of the red. So I'm just going right in over top of that orange. We're going to get to the image when we get onto this panel. We're going to do the image that is the reference image for tonight. Okay, so let's put a little bit more of the red there. There we go. And then I'll put some more red over here. And what I want to do here is I want to bring some blue in. So it's because this is a little harder, it's not completely covering the paper because this paper, this oil paper has a texture to it. And so it's not filling the whole texture. Let me bring it up closer so you can see how some of the texture is showing through. I actually like that because I like the sketchiness of it when you leave a little bit of the paper showing and not making it completely covered in paint. But I know some people like to completely cover in paint. So if I wanted to completely cover it in paint, that's where I'm going to bring a little bit of the medium in for that. So, ooh, let's see, which brush do I want to use for that? I actually want to use this softer brush here. So I have a little container. This is just a little ceramic that I got somewhere. I don't know where. Picked it up somewhere, probably at my church thrift store. And so I use this for my mediums for oil painting. It's ceramic. So in this case, if I want to move this around a little bit, I'm going to use this lean medium together with these RNF oils. Now this is by a company called Chelsea. So it says Chelsea Classical on it, but it is the lean medium. So what is it? It's a little bit of their spike oil. So their spike oil is their solvent that you can clean your brushes with and everything, and a little bit of linseed oil. So that is called an oil paint medium. So I can get that on my brush. It's like a thinner version of oil. Okay. Let me make sure I have a little bit of paper towel here. So I don't want it to be too wet. But now I can, if I want to, I can fill in those areas of the paper where the paint was not going down in there, right? So I can just come in here. This is this medium, this lean medium, because it has a little bit of linseed oil in it, is also going to make the paint dry more shiny. Okay. So you can do some of your more classical oil painting styles using a brush and some oil mediums. But you get the opportunity to create that sketch and create some depth and texture with those drawing oils. Isn't that fun? Okay. So that helps you to fill the tooth of the paper if you prefer that look. I like the chunky look myself, so I generally won't fill the paper. But if I wanted to do a background and then paint on top of it, I might choose to use some of the this spike oil. I call it the lavender spike oil. I introduced you to earlier. So here, I'm just going to grab a little bit more of that because I want to make these edges a little tighter and not so grainy. And I'm just using the medium to do that. Ooh, okay. Now, if I come back on top of this with the sticks, this it's going to sort of slip slide across the top of that. But we'll try it, right? We are going to try it. What the heck? Why not? Okay. Now there's some orange in here. Let's see what happens if I take some of that red off. And then I put a little more medium in there. So what I'm doing is I'm getting a bunch of that red out of the brush. There's still a little bit in there. I'm picking up the medium like that. And then I'm going to go over top of this orange area because I want to keep the orange in that space there, right? Okay. So now I've got a lot more in the way of just thin brush strokes in there. And I can do that with these drawing oils because they're just oil paint, y'all. They just have a little bit more wax in them to allow them to be picked up and easily drawn with. Aren't they cool? They are like so awesome. I'm in love. Now here I see I have a lot of, it's very juicy right there. So I want to take some of that up. Do you see the juiciness right there where it's all shiny? And then you can see some of the lines in there from using the brush. But I'm going to pick some of that juiciness up. I don't want it to be quite so much on there. And I'll just come in and smooth it a little bit. Only because I want to come back in with the sticks again. And let's see what happens when we come back in with the sticks. Because I haven't done this with these sticks yet. Okay, let's put that there. And then let's go back in with the sticks and see what happens. Make sure that it's good to go. Yep. Ooh, nice. Nice. Okay. I like it. I like it. It's sort of just pushing that out of the way as I come in with the stick. So I'll show you that in just a moment. There we go. Yee, nice. That works just fine to go back over top of it with the sticks. So there you go. You can see the marks, the mark making I'm making with my hand. Now let's look at the back of this sheet because it is oil paper. Nothing is coming through, not anything, not one stroke is coming through, which is fantastic, especially when you're using mediums like this on your artwork. Oftentimes the mediums can soak right through that paper if it's not prepared for oil paint. Um, okay, now let me bring some of the green. Oh, I wanted to use some of this dark blue. What color is this called? This is called Provence blue, which to me is like a purpley blue. So let me get it started, right? I got all of that dryness there. Got it. Let's pull some of it off of here as well. So keep your palette knife close because I find it really works well for that. Now let's say that we've got a little bit of a shadow underneath here, and we're going to put the shadow here. Okay. So I can do some mark making with it, just like I was working with a marker or something. And then I'm going to put some right here and come back in with some green. Nice. So this gives you the opportunity just have fun and mark make just like you would if you were using um, an oil pastel or some other sort of pen. There we go. Let's get some of that green off of there and go in like this. There we go. I want the green to be a little bit darker. Darker. So I can pick up a little bit of that purple and a little bit of the yellow over here and then put it in, right? Because I picked it up right on the end there. Yee, nice. Let's put like a little leaf out here I actually want that leaf to sort of start to brown. See me here just cleaning up as I go. So I want that to start to look a little bit brown. So let's take some of the orange. So your color mixing, your theories of color mixing will work here as well. All right, cool. And then if I want to, I can come in. And again, there's just a little bit of residue on my brush here. And then some people like to watercolor paint where their paint is more smooth. I prefer paint that's very expressive, has a lot of strokes in it, whether I'm using a brush or I'm using a pen like this or some sort of drawing implement. Let's just do this. There we go. And then I'm going to show you in just a second how it creates marks. Okay, let's take a little bit of this and just put it into there as well. There we go. Yay! Okay. I can see where you can just sit here and just have so much fun with that. All right. So I'm going to bring it up closer so you can see the marks. So there's the mark making over top. It looks like it worked just fine to mark make over top of where I used the medium to smooth it out. And then here I was just color mixing right on the fly, right on the piece of paper like that. Okay, so I'm just going to look and see if there are any questions about the drawing oils. Let's see, let's see. Oh, I don't see any, which is great. All right, cool. Let's go ahead then. And we're going to we're going to work now on this piece. We're going to start with, you know what? Let me show you the bigger oil sticks, and then we'll move into actually doing the image, this image that I have as our inspiration for tonight. So this is one of the full-size pigment sticks, which has a blob of white on it. Let me see if I can get that off of there. When they roll around and they touch each other, they're going to get dirty. So don't fret. They're still going to work just fine, even though they're dirty. All right. You can see right here where some of that coating of wax is. And I took some of it off earlier. So here, you can see it peels off like a skin, right? So you want to get that skin off of there if you want to paint with it. All right. Let's start with that. White. A lot of people who oil paint wear gloves, And oftentimes I wear gloves, oil painting too, because I really like to get into it and I end up with paint everywhere otherwise. So here, this one is let's see if it says, I think this is the 38 milliliter. Yeah, this is the 38 milliliter size. Believe it or not, there's a larger size. Let me show you this big honking thing. This is 188 milliliters. You see that sucker? Huge. This is silver. This one happens to be a silver. Now, this I got in a store where I would go back to the clearance area, and I found this in their clearance section because it wasn't too pretty anymore. But like I said, they're not going to be pretty. If you start using them, they're not going to be pretty. So it doesn't matter whether the exterior of it is pretty or not. But from a retailer standpoint, they put it back in their clearance area. So I was like, oh my gosh, okay, I'm buying that. But when I take it and I peel the skin off, there's silver right underneath there. So it's still, and look, it's still creamy. Ha! It's still creamy and ready to go. Isn't that crazy? But I got it for a song and a dance, maybe a third of what the normal price was because the outside of it looked all gross. But that is a perfectly good pigment stick. Crazy, crazy. That happens to be the iridescent silver color. So I'm just going to put it away in the box. So here again is the yellow. Now, the difference between the drawing stick here and this one is that the drawing stick is a little firmer and the pigment stick is much creamier. They're both creamy. It's just this one, the big one, is a lot creamier and it's going to deposit a lot more thick paint than the drawing oil is. So when we go to do our this image, we're going to start with the drawing oils to block in our design, and then we're going to use the larger sticks on top of it to really get our expressive, juicy lines. Now, another thing I wanted to show you was, let me just move this out of the way for right now. Ah, that's the problem with oil paint, right? I can't put anything on top of this. Although here, this is a good time for me to show you one other thing. If you don't like an area that you've painted, just take your palette knife and scrape. So a lot of artists will do their initial sketch and then they'll scrape. And what that does is it brings you back down to just a very smooth background. No texture here, just a smooth background. And then they build their painting on top of that. So I can come back on top of there and you'll be able to see how much more expressive those lines are with that interesting background. So do you see that right there? And these lines that are with the big stick, the pigment stick, are giving you lots of texture. Do you see all that texture in there? Oh, so pretty. Love it. Okay, okay. Um, Let me find somewhere to set this aside. Oh my gosh, that's what happens when you have lots of oil paintings. You're like looking for places that you can put stuff. Let me see, is that going to sit there? No. Okay, it's going to sit there off to the side. Now, what I wanted to show you was that just like when you're oil painting, you can use a palette. So this is just palette paper. I also have a painting palette here that I use. Especially if you're oil painting, it's nice to use a palette like this. This is just an acrylic palette. Sometimes they're wood. And you see this is a little clip-on right here. And so you can keep your mediums in there. I could put the lean medium in one and my spike oil in the other if I wanted to, or I could put the spike oil in one and I could put the walnut oil in another, something like that. So these are really handy to have right there on your palette so that you can dip in if you're doing a traditional brush work. Okay. Um, and if you want to, you can just take this paint and put it right on here like this. And it's like, okay, now I have a blob of paint on my palette and I can pick that up with my brush, right? And I can do regular oil painting boop, just like that. Okay, so you can use these in a traditional way, um, but I like to use them in a more expressive way, like a crayon. Okay, adult crayons, right? Now, over here, what I have is I wanted to show you the mediums. So the, oops, I think I dropped, hold on a second. I dropped a paper towel. Got it. Yay. Because Lord knows we're going to need lots of paper towels. Okay. So this blue is from a tube and this green is from one of the pigment sticks. And what I've done is, let me show you the tube paint. So let's take a magenta this time. So this is just a regular, I love these. This is the Pebeo XL Studio uh, oil paint. And so we're gonna put that out on the palette. Ooh, I haven't used it for a while. So the same sort of thing. This becomes stiff and then, ooh, the paint is just oozing out, isn't it? Because I haven't oil painted in a while. I've been watercolor painting lately, right? Since the World Watercolor Month in July. Okay, there we go. But it's still soft in the tube. I can feel the paint is soft. So I just had to take that top layer off. Yeet, let's get that there. So now I've got regular tube oil paint here, right? It's got a nice consistency, nice thick consistency. Of course, I can use either the lean oil or the spike oil, or let me put a little bit of lavender oil in there so that you can see, or I'm sorry, walnut oil, so you can see what this is like. So this is my walnut oil medium. That's where having these little cups comes in handy. You can put your mediums in there. Some people will just put a drop on their palette like that. So that is the beautiful walnut oil, drying oil that has barely any color to it. And it doesn't discolor, it's just, wow, it's amazing. So for instance, let me use a different brush. For instance, here's my walnut oil. Here's my oil paint. So if I want to loosen it, if it's a little too stiff, I can just come into my walnut oil here, and that gives me a little bit of looseness. All right. If I want it to be looser, because walnut oil is an oil, if I want it to be even looser and even thinner, then that's when I'm going to use either the lean medium or the lavender spike oil from Chelsea, or a lot of artists just use the Gamsol from Gamblin. Okay, so I'm going to pour a little bit of this lean medium right here. Bloop. So it's a combination. This is a combination of oil, linseed oil, and this solvent spike oil. So here it is here. And that's going to give you much, it's going to loosen up a lot more with that. And then I can go to my surface. Let me bring this one back up here so you can see. So now I'm ready to paint on my surface like that. And this is from a tube, but you'll see when we use um, the the pigment here, it operates the same way. Okay, so that was a couple of mediums out of the tube. Now, that's if you want to loosen it. If I want to stiffen it, then we've got the gel. This is from Gamblin. So instead of it being all runny like this is right here, that lean oil, it's actually a really cool gel. So I don't know if you could see that right there. It's a gel. So again, it's a solvent-free medium, but it has a little more body to it. It's so cool. That way, if you want to see your brush strokes, like you want to see the lines in your brush strokes, this is one of my favorite mediums, solvent-free gel from Gamblin to use with oil paint. Love that. And then you're going to see it's going to, because it's a gel, you're going to hold a little bit more of the shape. It's going to sit up on top of the paper a little bit more and give you a little more shape. But if you want lots of shape, that's when you use the blending medium, because this has wax in it. None of the other ones that I just showed you have wax in them, okay? They just have oils in them and solvents in them. But this one has wax in it. Oh, this is so cool. Okay, looks like I'm getting medium everywhere, which is not unusual. Um, this blending medium from R&F, it has a skin on it. So can you see the skin there? And that's from the wax. So before you use it, remember to take the skin off so that you can get to the wax and linseed oil underneath it, okay? And then I pull it out with my palette knife and put it on my surface. And it just looks like a little dollop of wax. I'm going to bring it up closer so you can see. Let's move that out of the way. So you see how stiff that is right there? And it has wax in it, so your paint's going to dry a little bit faster. And then I just mix my oil paint. It makes your oil paint go farther, and it also makes it a little more transparent or translucent. Wow, fantastic. Love it. And it just has that much more texture to it. I'm going to bring it up here to show you. So you see the hills and valleys there? Fantastic. So let me use this. Oh, let me use the same brush so you can see. If I get it on the same brush and then I put it on here, it really holds its texture. So you can go super thick if you want to. You see that texture right there? It holds beautiful texture. So whether you're working with the sticks or you're working with a tube, you can get beautiful texture using either the pot of blending medium or the stick of blending medium. So I can use the stick directly on my artwork, or this is a piece that I pulled off of the stick and it has a whole bunch of blending medium, right? There's the skin and then there's the blending medium on the inside. So I can pull this off and blend it up like that. Nice. So I can still get very textured artwork using these mediums, either with the sticks or with tubes. It doesn't matter either way. Now, this green that was here was actually from one of these sticks. Let me show you. So if you want to paint in a more traditional way, you just grab your stick and you can take your palette knife like this and you just whack a chunk of it off like that. See the chunk right there? And then you put it on your palette and then you go to town with it. You color mix, you add whatever mediums to it you want. And it's just oil paint with a little bit of wax in it. So it's got a little more body than your tube oil paint. Fabulous though, fabulous. So there it is off of the stick. All right, love that. Especially like if I have a color in the stick, but I don't have it in a tube, I can still mix the colors that I want, just whack off a piece of what's on the stick, right? It's awesome. Okay. And then I would pick it back up with a brush. Woo, and it would go right on to my painting. Here, boop, boop, boop. There we go. Nice. Fantastic for painting with, and it has that extra texture to it, which I love because it has the wax in it. Yeehaw. Okay, so let's, now if I want to clean this, what I do is I use that spike oil. So let's take that spike oil here. That's the lavender essence spike oil, or you could use Gamsol, either one. They're both solvents for oil paints. And I'm going to put it here in one of these. Yeet. And then I'm going to take my brush and I'm just going to mix it around in there and get the color off. Nice. So I freshen up my brush, right? Now what's going to happen is this is going to turn gray because you're going to be putting all different colors in there, and it's fine. It's fine if it turns colors. If it gets to where there's too much color in there and it's you want to clean it out, then I don't put it down the sink. This I take it and I use a paper towel. So let me grab a paper towel. Let me close this up real quick, Blake, and grab another paper towel here. So come on, picture, don't fall over. I just put a paper towel in there like that and soak it up. And then I'm ready to just put some more in there. Okay. The other container that I use if I'm doing a lot of painting is one like this. So it has little snaps on it like this. And then you've got this little thing on the bottom of there. This has Gamsol, odorless mineral spirits in it. And if you look on the bottom, can you see all the pigment that's in there? So the pigment will fall down to the bottom, and that's why you have this little basket. So now I can get at the medium that doesn't have pigment in it here because all the pigment fell down to the bottom, and I can run my brush against those little uh, that little grate on the bottom. Then you take it and before you pull it out, you use this little bar and you go like this and you get all the excess out of there. And then you go to your paper towel. Okay. That's how you use one of these. This one is very handy when I'm doing a lot of oil painting. That's the one I'm using to clean my brushes with. Okay, let's clean this up. Woo! So the beautiful thing about the disposable palettes is that you just roll it up and throw it away. Now, a lot of people recommend that if you're doing a lot of oil painting and you have a lot of this leftover oil paint, that instead of putting it in your trash bin, if you have a lot of trash and there's heat, it's a good idea to put it in a can like this. This is just a paint can. I don't think I have my little wrench right here, but what you do, this is just a paint can that you can get at the hardware store, empty. And so I pop this open and I put my leftover oil paint, this kind of thing, inside there. If you have a lot of it, and that's a fire prevention because oil paint, some of the oil paint mediums can ignite. And so, for safety concerns in your studio, hey, S. Diedrich, welcome in. Welcome in. I just see you got here. Um, you want to dispose of these items with the oil paint in just a can like this so it will not ignite. We don't want that. And it only ignites if there's a heat source. So if you don't smoke in your house or anything like that, then I wouldn't worry about it. But I did want to make you aware that uh, it can be advisable if you're doing a lot of oil painting to put those bits into a can. Okay, let's bring down a one of these. So this is your board, and what's on here is a combination of acrylic paint and gesso. So I could have painted it just with gesso, but I wanted to tint the background for this artwork that we're going to be working on now. Um, and oftentimes I will tint my background just so that I have a color on my background instead of only white. And then if I miss a spot as I'm doing my painting, it doesn't matter because this beautiful color will glow and show right through the background, right? And you can tint any of your gessos. So this is just a universal primer called gesso. It comes in white and other colors. There's black gesso, there's gold gesso, there's red gesso. But I just like to take a little bit of acrylic paint and tint it, and then make it whatever color I want. Now let's do another paper towel here. I'm getting oil paint everywhere. So this, if you don't have it yet, this image that I took of this red thistle is on my YouTube channel in the community area in the under the posts that you can print out. Or if you're on my Instagram, then you can I posted it to Instagram as well, so you can take it off of Instagram. Um, but let's go ahead and start to draw this. So I'm going to start with the um, drawing oils because I want to get the general layout of what I want with the drawing oils first, and then we're going to go to the larger pigment sticks, right? And using some of the techniques we were just talking about. So I'm going to set this up in front of me here. Let me see if you can see that. You cannot see that. Okay. So maybe I will bring this over here. Can you see that? Kind of. You can kind of see that, right? Okay, so I'm gonna start with the green. I want to just get an idea of where I'm going to. Well, I probably want to start with the red. So this is going to be the top of the thistle. This again is the R&F drawing oils. So it's the smaller size, perfect for doing the drawings. And I've taken the skin off of it. So now we can just begin. Why don't I just start in the center here? And all I'm doing right now is I want to get an idea of where my different parts are for what I'm drawing. So I love that about these. When they first announced these drawing oils, I was going nuts because they announced them, they showed videos about them, they had ambassadors with them, but they weren't available to the public and they were talking about how great they were. And I'm like, y'all are killing me here because I want them and I can't get them. And then they finally came out. I was like, oh, thank goodness. Now I can go buy them. Okay, so that is, it is not quite centered, is it? So let me bring this here. This is why it's good to use something like this to draw. Okay, so I'm feeling like I want it over this way a little bit more, right? There we go. That's better. More toward the middle there. Okay, and then we're going to go here. This one, I can feel that there's the still a bunch of the um, skin around it. So I'm just going to clean the skin off so that I can easily draw with it. So as Diedrich, you weren't here earlier, I was saying that these are oil paint with wax in them. These R&F drawing oils and the oil paint sticks. And so before you use them, you have to peel off the wax layer that's dried. Now, if I went in tomorrow and I were going to use them right away tomorrow, let's say I ended this evening and then I start again tomorrow, it may not have skinned back over yet. I may be able to just pick it right up and go, but I can sort of feel it. Oh, excuse me. I have a fan blowing on me tonight because my air conditioning wasn't working to the level I needed it to. It's still in the 80s here in Florida, y'all. So, all right. So I'm going to do this and just get the basic shape here. That's the beautiful thing about having something that's like a pencil. I wouldn't, even if I'm going to do an oil painting, I would not want to use an oil pastel. And like I told you before, the reason is because oil pastels have oils in them that do not dry, whereas these drawing oils from R&F have linseed oil in them, and so they will dry. That's the difference. Okay, let's get some of this in here. I just want to get the basic shape of it. Okay. And then down below here, see there's going to be some yellow petals coming up here. So I don't want to go too far down with the green here. So I'm just going to kind of define the bottom part right here. And then underneath here, we're going to have the stem, right? And in between the stem and there, we're going to have some more petals. So let's use some of the yellow extra pale. That's this one here. So we can begin to define, we're defining some of these little yellow spots right here. Now this is going to be very impressionistic. Okay. I'm not going for realism here. Realism is not my bag for the most part, unless I'm using colored pencil, then I don't mind going a little more realistic, but that takes hours, hours and hours and hours to do in colored pencil. Okay, I'm noticing that the edge, this is worn down to where the top here is, I have good softness on the top, but the edge is stiff. And I want to use the edge for drawing. So I'm taking that wax off of the edge here. Nice. There we go. Fabulous. Thanks for spending your Sunday evening with me. I appreciate everybody who stops into the show. Thank you for being here. Okay, so the main one is right here. There is a leaf that comes like this. That's the main one. And I'm going to be putting other colors on top and possibly color blending. So this is just my sketch, right? I call them the drawing oils. Okay, so there's another one here. And there's another one back behind here. And another one that kind of sticks up there. And then one that's kind of brown, but it comes out here. And another one right here. So I'm just sort of drawing what I see here. Some of it's going to end up being sort of brownish, but for right now, I'm just putting it in as yellow. And then there's something that's sticking out here, isn't there? And over here, we've got a rogue one that comes out and up. And then it comes down here, over here, like that. So just drawing, drawing, drawing. And because I'm just using this for my inspiration, but of course, if I decided to go rogue and just put other stuff, oh, I need a, to balance it, I need another one over here, just do it. So as I'm building the design. So I'm going to do this. It looks like it comes out here and sort of across and up, right? And then over here, there's a big one down here. There's another one kind of comes up here like that. Okay. We have another yellow one that starts here, comes up, very thin. And another one that comes up here like this. And something else that goes back behind there, something else that comes off of here. Okay, so to me, it's looking a little lopsided, which if you look here, it could be a little lopsided. So I'm going to, there's actually, I'm going to bring something out over here. So at least it's not quite so lopsided. All right. So I'm going to clean this off. Beautiful. This is my favorite light color besides white. Brilliant. It's called Brilliant Yellow Extra Pale. Oh my gosh. I have this color in a big fat one somewhere in my collection. I'm not sure where it is right now. Okay, so we've got a basic drawing here of what we're going to be working with. Maybe I'll put a little bit of, bring a little bit of orange into some of the areas where I'm going to want to put some brown, right? So we'll just start with some orange here. And that just sort of is going to define for me my browns. I don't even know if I have a brown here. So if I don't have a brown, I may have to make one, right? And I can either make it by mixing colors right on the surface, or I can mix it on a palette and then paint it on with a brush, right? So this is a little bit brown over here. And we've got some brown going here. And some brown back in here. And you're like, but Tristina, that's not brown. I know. It's okay. It's okay. Don't worry. This is just a preliminary, kind of getting an idea of where everything, where I want to put things. It's kind of brown back here. There we go. And this has definitely got some brown in it there. And okay, so that's it for right now. Let's see. No, a little bit more here. Now, you can get a brown if you mix orange and green. So let's see what these two, what happens with these two here. So I'm going to put a little bit of orange there and a little bit of green on top, and I'm getting a brown. So I'm going to go back where those little brown areas are, and I'm just going to put a little bit of green on there because they're blending together and giving us a sort of a brown. And I don't know if you can hear it, but I'm tapping. So you can see just little marks. I'm not completely filling it. I'm just doing little marks right now, just so that I can create the sort of idea that there's some brown there. I do the same tapping when I'm working with oil pastels too. I like to tap. And then here, there's a bunch of brown right here. Tap, 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 tap. So that visually when you look at it, it gives you a kind of a brown look. Okay. More of that. So nice. Just getting a little bit of brown going there. All right, cool. And then where else is there? There's a little bit, I still have a little bit of orange on here. So I'm just going to bring a little bit of orange up in this area right here. Just right at the tops. There we go. So we're beginning to develop something there, right? So let me put this down here just a little bit too, because I want a little bit of sort of a greeny brown look to this stem. There we go. So now that I'm done with the orange on there, I'm gonna clean the orange off. There we go. Nice. So that'll be ready to use next time. And there's a bunch of green on this orange one right here. There we are. Okay. So that's how I like to use something like the drawing oils. Let me bring some orange into here. This is just giving us that little bit of background. So it's definitely a lot lighter over here and darker over here. So let me put a little bit more red down in here because it's a little bit darker down here. What's another way I can get it red? I can put some of this. This is called Provence blue. Provence blue. And what's in it is let's see, PB29. That's a ultramarine blue, PV23, dioxazine violet, and some white in this one. But what I want to do is in the picture, you see how it's super dark right there? So I just want to bring in the idea of that. And let me make sure that there's, yes, that it's moving. And so I'm just tapping it and bringing in a little bit of that darkness right there. A lot of times what you're doing is creating up close, it looks weird, but far away when you're looking at the work. And normally when somebody's looking at your artwork, they're standing, it's up on a wall or they're standing far away from it. So you don't see those taps as much. You see more the full composition. So I'm going to bring this up a little bit closer because I want to show you there are little bits right here on there. So I'm going to take those little bits off right now. And those are little wax bits, right? From the wax being dry. So I just want to take those little bits off so they don't wander around my composition. There we go. Nice. Okay, got it. So now we're going to go into some of um, the bigger sticks. So let me see where I am. Good, good. Let's take these. I'm going to move these away right now. So I've done my initial drawing, which is fabulous. I love those for doing the initial drawing. And then I'm going to move my brushes out of the way and I'm going to bring into here. Hey, let me set that aside. I'm going to bring into here. I have my box here of my paints. So I'm actually going to have them off to the side. Can you see them? You can kind of see them, kind of not see them. Okay. And then in case I need them, I have my palette knives here. All right. So we've got this cadmium green pale, and we've got this beautiful color called turkey umber greenish, which is a dark, dark, dark green. And let me see what else I have. And then I also have this chromium oxide green. So when I work on a painting, I like to have three values of the same color. So in this case, I have a light green, a middle green, and a dark green. And so that helps you to sort of define your lighter, your mid-range, and your darker colors, right? So I like to have that available. And then for the red, I have this turkey red. So that's a deep red, similar to the stick that I had there. And then this one is a cadmium red medium, so it's lighter. You see that? I don't have a super light red, but instead of a super light red, I can just use a yellow. This is a Naples yellow. So these are in the same family. And I'm also going to use this yellow for the yellow areas on the leaves, right? So it'll tie the whole thing together. So those are the colors I'm going to be using. Let me just put out a piece of paper towel and I'll lay those right next to me right here. Let's see. Okay. Maybe I'll just do this instead. I have a piece of palette paper there. Okay. So now I think you can kind of see. Yeah, you can sort of see the sticks, right? Okay. Um, Geez, for some reason my computer over there is stuck. That happens sometimes. It's crazy. Uh, okay, let me make sure you can see. Yep. Then now I come in here with my sticks and I start adding paint. Now, it's possible also that I may pop in with a brush if I feel like I want to move things around with a brush. So let's just use these. The paints that I have here, the colors are from two different sets. So they're two different sets of six. So I had a total of 12 colors. So let's take a look at our image and we've got lighter areas up here. Now, of course, I have to use my palette knife and take some of the edge of this off if I want to use the edge of it. So with these big ones, I tend to use the edge for drawing and the top for painting. Okay, so here we go. Let's put that into a paper towel, that edging there. If you weren't here earlier, the when the paint is dry like that, when the wax in it dries, then you don't reconstitute it again. You just throw it away. Okay, so that means the wax is dry. So I'm going to take this Naples yellow and I'm going to come up into here. And now my marks are much juicier. You're going to see, I'm going to show you in just a second. The marks are bigger and even more expressive. Okay, so let me just bring that up. Do you see how the marks are bigger and they're covering more area? Now, besides that, I'm also going to come in with some of the green right on top of it. So I've got some yellow peeking through and I've got that beautiful light green. And then I'm going to bring some light green down in here, background area. So just like oil paint, I'm just going to build up layers. But I love how using the sticks, you end up with a lot more texture in your artwork. Love that. Okay, just do that. Nice, nice. So you see the texture that's there. Now I do see some of the wax. Uh, Here we go. Some of the wax like this. Nice. And then, um, so if they're chunks, I like to take them out as I go. There we go. All right, so we're beginning to shape up now. They're looking good, looking good. Let me see now as far as brown, let me see if I have, see, I don't have a brown in here. So I do have a black, but they like to call me on Sunday night and it's like, you have to call me before 5:30. So this one, you can actually see the skin right there. You see that? Where I'm able to peel that off of the edge. So that skin's going away. And this is turkey red, so it's quite a dark red. So I'm going to have to use that. I'm going to have to improvise and use that sort of as my brown and mix it with a little bit of the green in order to get a brown going. So let me just come in here and bring it down into here. Now this is going to be impressionistic. This is not, I'm not going for accuracy. I'm not going for um, fineness. I'm going for impression. Okay, that's happens to be the way I like to paint. I like to paint in a very impressionistic way. Um, and so that's why when this gets done, it's going to look like an impression of this picture. It's not going to look like an exact replica. If I were doing colored pencil, I would be getting much more detailed and having it be more realistic. But when I do oils like this, and I just have fun, I let loose and just get the colors kind of in the same areas and the same feel of it. It's okay. I like I like the way that doing impressionistic work like this is just so much more freeing and fun. I just think it's so much fun. Okay, see how that looks much more brown up there now. Okay, good. So I'm putting it over top of where I had the green and orange, and so it has a bit of a brown look to it. Yeah, let's do the same here. Nice. That is so fun. I'm going back and forth to my picture just to kind of get a feel for what I'm looking at here, where the color should be. There's a lot more green on that. This one's a little more brown in this area. It's brown here and a bunch of brown here. Ah, so this sort of goes like that. There we go. So now visually it's looking much more brown. It's crazy, right? I love that. Ah, I'm seeing there's something up behind here too. So I'm going to put a little bit, build a little bit more back behind there. There. So it kind of goes like this. And I need a little more back behind here, right? There we go. Now I'm going to use this also in the bottom area here and off to the side here where it's much darker. So remember I have that blue in there and I want to clean it a little bit. So that blue will help and those little orange marks also will help to give the impression that there's some darkness in there. Okay. Nice. Now I didn't do the whole area at the top because I'm going to be using my lighter red up there, right? To brighten that area. Ooh, there's a bunch of green on here. Let me peel the edge so that I can use the side. I'm going to be showing you how I cover a large area with the top of these. When we get near the end of the painting, I'll do the background with the top instead. Okay, there. And what I need to do here, I know some people are like, aren't you wasting oil paint? Yes and no. If you just want to get on with painting, then, don't worry about it. If you're concerned about that little bit of paint that was left on that skin, then of course you can pick that up with a brush, right? Like this, you can pick it up with a brush and you can apply it onto your artwork as well. So if you do want to use that little bit. So here's our beautiful bright cadmium red. Let's come up in here. Now we're bringing in the boldness, that beautiful bright red. Nice. And I love that I have in the background um the drawing sticks, the drawing oils. Okay, so there's a lot more like red up in here. Let's see, how does that look? And some more coming in over here. A little bit coming down here, right? There we go. Ooh, I like it. I like where it's going. Yes, yes, yes. I have no idea why, but my computer locked up across the way. But fortunately, I can see what I'm doing on YouTube. So, woo! Oh, I love that. And see, when you have a color in the background already, you're not worried about the fact that you're not covering the whole area, right? And you can be more expressive with your strokes because that blue is showing through, but that's okay because that light blue is my background. That's fine, right? I love that. Okay, so I also want to put some yellow, some of this Naples yellow, which is not a bright yellow, it's a warm yellow. And I want to put some more of this up in this area, but I want it to be that the light is coming from. So I need to determine what area is my light coming from. It's coming from over here. So I'm going to highlight some of these areas here, which if you actually look at the picture, there's a little bit of yellow showing over on the side here. Right? So we're just bringing that little bit of yellow in there. And I'm leaving this side over here a little bit darker, which is fine because from the photograph, the light's coming from here and it is darker over there. Let's just put a little bit of light up here as well. Nice. Okay. Now, what else are we going to do down here? We need to bring, this is a, like I said, a warmer yellow. The drawing oils, let me show you. The yellow I was using in the drawing oils for the set that I purchased is the yellow extra pale. So it's almost a white, it's slightly off white, right? So this one, the Naples yellow, is significantly darker and warmer. And so now I'm going to come in here to the petals and do some more of that warm yellow. Add that in there. And then there's a little bit of yellow back here. A little bit of yellow right there. Okay. Impressionistic, right? I'm definitely not going for it to be realistic at all. Okay. And then if you put yellow in a place and you go, oh my gosh, that's like way too much yellow. Well, you just cover it up with some more taps of a different color. So no fuss, no muss, do not worry. And then there's a little bit of yellow down in there. Well, as it gets dirty, I have to clean it off. Oh my gosh, this is so much fun, right? So much fun. Just tap, 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 tap. Here, there's some yellow coming in here. I haven't brought my greens in yet, so there's going to be, much more green happening in there. So I don't have to cover the whole thing, but I do want to bring some more yellow in there. Bring some more yellow up here. Bring some yellow across the top of there. Got some nice yellow in here, don't we? And then some more right there. Okay, right here, we've got some nice yellow coming across this leaf right here and some yellow right there. So I'm looking back and forth between my reference and my artwork. Reference artwork, reference artwork. Right? Saying, okay, where is that color? I'm getting rid of any excess color here. Okay, this one, there's some yellow in here. And a little bit of yellow in there. Okay. I can always come back later and add more yellow in if I need to. Once I start putting the green on, I may need to rebuild some of that yellow in there. Okay, there's actually a lot of yellow on here and a lot of yellow on here. And then there's a lot of green over there. So I'm just going to put a little bit right there. Okay. So this I'm ready to put away for the moment. Now I'm getting a lot of color over here because it ends up getting on your, see, there's green all over the bottom of my hand. So let's get that off of there. If you really want to be careful with that, what you can do is in the area where you're not working, but your hand's going to be over it, you can put a piece of wax paper. So just like when you're drawing, if you want to be sure you don't smudge, you put a little bit of wax paper down in the area where you don't want to smudge it, right? So here we go. I'm just going to put a little piece of wax paper right here because I can see I'm doing a bunch of smudging right there. Come on now. Yee. Okay. Put my hand right there. Let me hold it. All right. So now I've kind of got the idea of the browns. You see how the orange and the green blended together and it looks brown now? So that's what I was saying, where you just put dots and dashes of the colors, and that's what's going to happen. It's going to start to look brown. Oh, by the way, if you're over on YouTube, if you're enjoying the show, if you would please smash the like button, that would certainly help. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. And feel free to share it with your friends, the show. Now I see little bits that I need to go back in and pick up. If there are little bits that are just going to get in the way of what I'm doing, okay. Most of it was pretty creamy, so I only see a few little bits there. All right, so next I'm going to go with, I'm going to come in with those greens that I was talking about. So let's start with the darkest green. That is this turkey umber greenish. Oh my gosh, this is such a beautiful deep green. And I already have some of the paint here. Yes, there's a little bit of skin, but I'm going to be tapping with it. Tap, tap, tap. So I'm okay that the rest of the top of this is still coated in wax, the hardened wax. So where are the darkest areas? That's the question I have to ask myself right now. Now, one of the darkest areas is right here, is dark, right on the back of that. Okay. And then some of this area right here is quite dark. Then of course, there's a little bit of darkness in here. I can always go back, right? And reintroduce the light. So don't freak out if it's like, oh my gosh, I shouldn't have put that there. It's okay. Just to breathe, relax. This is about just observing and having fun, okay? We do not need to stress when we're creating art. The idea is, for me, is that art is joyful and joy filled. So there are some dark areas over here. A little bit of darkness in here. I'm going to bring a little bit of darkness there. Remember, I still have my mid-tone to go. Okay, so I'm just dropping in some of the darker areas. Mm, there's some darkness back behind here. Definitely some darkness in here. It's dark underneath there. And if you say, ooh, Tristina, that's actually like really dark, too dark, that's okay. We still have our mid-tone. So I usually like to work from light to dark to mid-tone, and then I pop in a few more lights or darks if I need them. Okay, so light to dark to mid-tone. So let's do that there. We've got a little bit of darkness coming in here. We have a little bit more darkness in here. This is impressionistic, so it does not have to be perfect, y'all. Does not need to be perfect. It's just an impression of what I'm seeing. Okay, let's add just a little bit more there. So we've got a rim of dark. I kind of want a rim of darkness right here. There we go. And then here we have a little more darkness up along here. Okay. Oh, I like where it's going. I do like where it's going. Okay. We need just a little bit more. I think nope. We need a little more darkness. Let me turn it so that I can, because I keep tapping and not getting any paint, and that's because I haven't taken all of the skin off of this area back here, right? I have not done that. Okay, awesome. It's looking good, looking good. Any more up here? No, I kind of feel like I have what I need up there. Maybe just a little bit more right there. And a little bit more over here. Nice. Okay, I like where it's going. So again, I'm gonna wipe this off. Beautiful. This turkey umber, oh my gosh, y'all. Turkey umber greenish. Amazing dark. That is an amazing dark. Don't worry, I will put all of the colors that I'm using. I will put into the description of the video, so you'll be able to see what the colors are. And maybe you have a favorite that you can get. Okay, so this is the mid-tone green. So right now, the top of this has the skin off, but the edges don't. And I want to tap right now. I'm doing the tapping motion. So I'm going to take a little bit of that. You see how the skin is coming off the top, the side there? Yee, that was a big piece of skin. Hold on a second. Big piece of the wax skin. So that means I have plenty now exposed. Is it? Yep. There's a little bit more of the wax right there. So this is my beautiful mid-tone green. Let's work with that. And so I want to be nice, bring that in here. So now this mid-tone green is really going to start defining everything. This is going to start to give it all a beautiful definition. Let's see where I want it to go here. So I don't want to cover up all of the light and I don't want to cover up all of the dark. I just want to bring it in and really sort of highlight that mid-tone. I do want to use more of it over on the dark side than on the light side because the light's coming from over here. So this side's going to be, in general, a little darker anyway. Let's see what else I need here. Okay, I did that. See how I'm not worrying if there's some of that blue showing through? I don't need to worry about that at all. I think it's awesome. It's okay if some of the blue shows through. Okay. And then over here, I need some more of this in here. There we go. Over here, there's a little more green in this area and a little more green over here. Nice. Wow. It is definitely coming together. I love that. And let me see. I'm looking at my reference photo. So I'm sure I know where I want to go next. And then over here, we have some interesting midtones along with some lights because the light's coming from over here. And I'm going to bring some green in here, even though I don't see very much of it. I'm going to bring it in there anyway. Sometimes we get to interpret what we see, which is not always what's there. So we get to interpret it for what we believe is going to make our composition look better. Right, nice. And let me bring some of that there. And some more of that there. There we go. Love that. Need some there. Wow, beautiful. Loving where this is going. Let me just look on this side over here some more. Where else do I need some green? Okay, so this one, I need just a little bit of green right over here. Yee, there. It's like, what, Tristina, what are you talking about? I know, just a little bit right there. And this one needs a little more definition here. There we go. Sweeping it in there. Okay, let me look here. I need a little more green in this area. Yep. Wow. All right, I'm loving where that is. What do you think? Very impressionistic thistle, but I love it. I love it. I love it. Okay, so that is, you can always come back to this tomorrow, the next day, and say, wow, I need to add this back in or that back in. It is going to be somewhat, it'll take about 24 hours to begin to skin over, and then about 48 hours to get hard to the touch. Um, and then you can still work back on top of it. It's okay. Even if it's already hard, you can still go back in and work over top of it. But it is going to take weeks for it to get fully cured the way that oil paints get cured. I'm just looking. I want to see. I feel like I need a little bit more of the light to come back in over here. And the reason is because this is the side where the light is coming from. So I did get rid of a lot of the light by putting in a bunch of dark there. So I want to come back in and throw in a little bit more light on this side. A little bit of light here. There we go. Okay. And a little bit more here. A little bit more there. Nice. Some right here. So now I'm taking some artistic license, coming back in here and saying, okay, for this, the look of this, I need to make some adjustments, which is fine. Fine, do it if you feel like you need to. Okay, good. I'm happier with that. And then I'm going to go ahead. Let's see, I want a little bit more of that yellow in there. Yep. I just want to bring a little bit more of the highlight. Eek, right there. A little bit more highlight here, here, right? So this is the point when someone can say, you're overworking it, right? But the beautiful thing is I can always come back in and adjust it after I've had a chance to rest on it and get a critical eye of what I think it might need more of. Okay. So I'm gonna put those down right now. Okay. I'm gonna put that down. I'm just gonna wipe off my hands real quick here with a paper towel, and then we're gonna do a little bit of work on the background so that you have an idea of what I like to do with the background. And again, thank you for being here on a Sunday evening. I appreciate you all joining me. And next week, I'm going to be doing, instead of a flower like this week, we're going to be using the oil sticks, but we're going to be doing a landscape, an interesting abstracted landscape. Okay, not a regular landscape. Okay, there we go. So now what I like to do is I like to take my white. So in this case, this is the titanium zinc white. And I want to create, I'm just very lightly going over it. So, and I can do this just with the white, or I can even use my fingers here and I can blend the white in, right? So if I wanted to, I could do this and I can soften that and blend that in. So if you wanted to put clouds up in the background, you could certainly do that. Or we could cover the whole area and just see how soft that is? I think it's so soft. Just like that. Now, what I also like to do is I like to bring color into that and sort of mix it right on the surface. So here is the cobalt blue. Beautiful blue. Well, look at that. I have green from my other greens, so let me get that off of there. And you can also, this is called scumbling, where you take the top. Remember I said I was going to show you how to use the top of this, where we've already taken the skin off. So scumbling is where you're just lightly going over the top. So I can scumble over, which is lightly over the top of this, and just deposit a little bit of color like this. Maybe there's a shadow at the bottom of the clouds, right? And so scumbling with the top like this lets you put those in. Now, let's see what other color I have. Do I have another blue? Okay. I have another blue of this one right here. Oh, you know what I want to do? I want to use the drawing oil. Let's see if this will work. So this is the drawing oil, and the color is Provence blue. I like this blue. It's almost a purpley blue. And so, yes, I can come in with these and put a little bit of the Provence blue in there. And then either use my fingers again, use a brush. See, that gives it a little bit of a purpley look to it. Right. So yeah, that brings in a purple look because it's all quite wet like that. Now, what if I want to bring in a sort of a green area? I love a very light green. Like you see this green right here that I showed earlier is a limited edition color. So this is a brand new one. I'm going to take the plastic off the top, and you're going to see some of the wax is going to come with it, right? But this is more or less like this whole thing right here. There's nothing. That's just wax on there. But what I'm going to do with this is tear some of this off of the wax to get down to the paint on the inside like that. Oh, what a pretty color, right? Limited edition. Okay, so I need to get that skin off. This is an older one, so the skin is actually quite thick. Get to there. Now, I can combine techniques, of course. I don't have to just use sticks on this. I can also come here. I can take a bit of this and put it on my palette. So here is my palette. I can take a bit of this paint and use a palette knife. Let me just use my palette knife to get it out of there. Boop. There's my paint right there, right? So I'm going to put it on a palette like this. At this point, I can use a palette knife to apply it like this, or I can use a brush to apply it. Okay, I can use either way to apply it. What I like to do is put a little bit on here and then come back with that white again. So you'll see what happens when I use the white with it. So we've got this beautiful color on here. Okay, a little bit more. Okay, now let's take that white again. And I like to come in with the white and then they just sort of mix together on the surface. So you can use your tube paint, or if you have some other sort of paint that's oil based, and you can put it on here and then you can use this white and sort of mix it right on the surface like that. It gives it an interesting texture when you do that. So do this. But I love that like those sort of light greens together with the white, I think just looks fabulous. Now, some of you may not like that loose swirly look. So if you don't like it, you can just take a brush. So we can come back in with a brush. Whoop, grab one of my brushes here. Remember I said I really like this uh, filbert shape of my brushes. I like it because of the way I can get in here to the edges. So if you want it smoother, you can just come in with a brush like this. Now that the paint's already there, I can just come in and smooth it like that. If I want a more uniform type of coverage, right? Here, I love my filbert. This is a hog hair, okay, a hog bristle, so it's a little bit stiff, and that helps me to be able to easily move around the oil paint like that. And because it's the blue in the background, oh my gosh, this is so awesome. So awesome. So what I will do, but I'll do it off camera, is I will create a little bit of the blue again with the white, like I just did here for the green, and I'll carry that up closer and closer to the clouds so that that way I've got just a nice, what would you call it, a gradient between down here and up here for that. Nice. Okay. I like it. I like it. I like it. There we go. And how am I going to clean the brush? I'm going to use either mineral spirits or the lavender spike oil essence. So this is my mineral spirits here. I'm just going to clean it, clean it, clean it. And like I said, I don't pour mineral spirits down the sink. What I do is I just soak it up with a paper towel and put it in the garbage. So then I use that to get the excess moisture off. And there you go. Now that brush, the color is off of the brush, and that would be ready to go for another color. All right. So that is it for this particular workshop. For the art part of the workshop, I'm so happy that you joined me for it. If you have any questions, you can either message me on Whatnot or you can leave me, you can go into the community tab over on YouTube and ask me questions over there in the community area of YouTube. All right. And so this is going to be the end of this portion of the workshop.